AAVE is a borrowing and lending protocol on Ethereum, and just recently released AAVE version 2, which has a ton of cool new features that makes using AAVE even more powerful. With AAVE, you can leverage the full power of DeFi money Legos, yield, and composability all in one application. On AAVE, there are a ton of assets that you can deposit in order to gain yield, and all of those same assets can also be borrowed from the protocol if you have deposited collateral. Here you can see me getting a 200 USDC loan against my portfolio of a number of different DeFi tokens and ETH. I'll choose a variable interest rate because it's a lower rate than the stable interest rate option, but I could choose the stable interest rate option if I wanted to lock that interest rate in permanently. One of AAVE's V2 features is the ability to swap collateral without having to withdraw your assets, trade them on Uniswap, and then deposit them back into AAVE. AAVE does all of this for you all in one seamless transaction, so you don't have to repay loans in order to change the collateral you have backing them. Check out the power of AAVE at aave.com. That's AAVE.com. GEMINI is the world's most trusted cryptocurrency exchange. I've been a customer of GEMINI since I first got back into crypto back in 2017, and it has been my main exchange of choice to make my crypto buys and sells. GEMINI is available in all 50 states and over 50 countries worldwide. And on GEMINI, there are markets for over 30 various crypto assets, including many of the hot DeFi tokens like YFI, AAVE, Uni, and also they are one of the few exchanges that has liquid DAI markets. Having both the option of logging into the Gemini.com website or instead opening the GEMINI mobile app has allowed me to be able to access any and all exchange and on or off ramp services that I've needed to on a moment's notice. With instant deposits and fast withdrawals, I'm able to make my money do the things I want it to when I want it to. You can buy crypto safely and securely on GEMINI with the peace of mind of knowing that your investments are insured and protected with industry-leading cybersecurity. You can open up a free account in under 3 minutes at gemini.com/gobankless. And if you trade more than $100 within the first 30 days after signup, you'll be gifted a free $15 bonus. Check them out, gemini.com/gobankless.
All right, Bankless Nation, welcome to another community Ask Me Anything. This is your opportunity to ask questions of DeFi founders and interesting projects. We have Evgeny on from Zerion. Zerion is an interface to all sorts of DeFi protocols. I probably use this tool on a daily basis. It's a great way to view assets across all of your various DeFi wallets and to actually manage transactions. I'd be kind of lost without this tool. This is your opportunity to ask questions of Evgeny. So if you have a question, go ahead and comment in YouTube. David or I will get to it and we'll prioritize it. And if you're in the Bankless Discord as well, you can ask a question that way.
And that's mainly for the Periscope people. If you are watching this on Twitter, that's fantastic. But if you want to engage with the YouTube comments and get your comments to Evgeny, you got to go to the YouTube.
Evgeny,
thank you guys.
Welcome to Bankless. It is great to have you. We are in a crypto bull market, I think, my friend, but you were building this during the bear market, weren't you? What was that like?
It was actually way more calmer. And first of all, yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be on the show. And actually, this is my first live AMA, so I'm excited for this.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was during the bear market. I kind of like it because people are not running around and like screaming about the prices, so it's much easier to build. You just you forget about the price for a long time, and you can actually focus on building stuff. And this is like the currency of the bear market is like what you've shipped versus like how much it's worth. But yeah, I don't mind the bull market either, obviously. So it's good that we're here.
So since this is your first Ask Me Anything, I think it would be great for the Bankless community to kind of get to know you. So can you tell us a little bit about your crypto journey? How did you end up here?
Yeah, sure. So in short, I think crypto has been throughout my life, like the only big thing in my whole life. So apart from, of course, like engineering. And so I started as a software engineer myself. Like I was studying and like I did a few internships here and there. But then like since I discovered crypto, that became my whole thing and like the biggest part of my life in a sense. And specifically, I think Ethereum was the most exciting thing among all of the crypto things, simply because when I discovered Bitcoin, it was just, it was great as a concept, but I couldn't see how I can participate apart from just holding it. And that seemed like a very boring thing to do. So when Ethereum came around, I guess many software engineers felt that, so that you can actually start writing things on top of this machine. And that is, groundbreaking concept. So this is how I got into it. My co-founders, they are also fascinated by the concept. So we just got together and wanted to do something. We didn't know like yet what's going to happen, but we really wanted to be a part of this journey. So it's been since like 2015, I think we've been on this, and yeah, we never stopped since we started.
And so what's the idea behind Zerion? Like, did you envision it would become what it is today, or did it start with a different premise? Why did you decide to build it, and like what is it?
Yeah, so first of course, like any product is a series of iterations. But I think the core ideas and the core concepts that we had in mind when we built this particular product were there, and they're still here, while we were making changes to it. So essentially, when we started, we noticed this fragmentation. Like we knew that it's not there yet in a sense, because like we only tried out what Uniswap and Maker and Co-Founde, I think, by the time, but we just realized that it's going to be a way more things on in this DeFi thing. So people will need tools to make sense of it. And looking at the number of tokens that are appearing on the blockchain, it's like in thousands every single day now, probably. Like it was in thousands a month before. And given number of protocols, just to compare that, in 2019 we integrated about 5 protocols in the whole year. And then in 2020, we integrated over 50. I lost
Oh my
count,
God.
honestly. So that is like just to
Wow.
show you the scale of how many new financial instruments are appearing. So I think in the future, it's similar to how internet was evolving. So, in the beginning, you only had a few websites out there and people knew them all by heart in a sense. But
Yeah.
then you have, this explosion of new different things, and you need to keep track of them. You need to find them. You need to evaluate them. And that's what Zerion helping you to do. So we help you to keep track of your DeFi portfolio. We help you discover all new assets, and we help you execute the trades at the lowest rates possible. So yeah, that's the core premise of Zerion.
So Evgeny, I want to hear from you how you would explain Zerion to somebody who knows about Bitcoin. Maybe they've heard of Ethereum, maybe not, but they understand that there's this weird, crazy thing called crypto. How would you explain Zerion to somebody like this, with this sort of understanding? And so I think what I'm asking is, like, for people that are looking for like legacy mental models to map onto,
Yeah.
how would they understand Zerion? And then maybe after you're done explaining that to them, how would you explain the features that Zerion has that they would never be able to find in the legacy world, yet they could probably still resonate with?
Yeah, I think the closest to in the traditional world is, I think many people use this analogy, something like Robinhood. So looking at Zerion, it's an asset management tool. It's an investing app. So you can find any asset, you can click to buy it. And we were inspired in many like UI decisions and UX decisions by Robinhood and other investment apps. So essentially, I think this is the closest as an analogy as it gets. In terms of like what are the features that Zerion has? I think the biggest one is this, it's the whole narrative of Web3, how you have an address that you plug in and you instantly get all the data, it comes with this address right away. So you don't have to start it over again. You don't have to deposit money again. So this gives you a whole lot of freedom. And the people who are complaining about the UX of crypto, they just haven't tried it fully. So they haven't really used it much. So once you get to use MetaMask on a daily basis, you get to understand how frustrating it is to sign up every time and like connect your credit card and connect your fill out the details of your account and everything. So I think this is the biggest benefit, and just us as a company, we're taking a lot of advantage of that, because we can get a bunch of information just from the blockchain, and users are getting this amazing user experience right away. And all the assets, they're all public on chain. All the transactions are still there, so you don't need to build out this your relationship with the user and your journey with the user is actually much, much shorter. So you can start quickly and start helping them quickly. And this gives, and for the users as well, this is beneficial because they can, if the UX really sucks, they can just switch. And I think this keeps us, even though it's like a lot of competition, and it's harder to make money off of that and like be rent seeking. But I think that's a good thing overall, and crypto will win because of that.
Another analogy I like, Evgeny, is like the early internet type of analogy that you talked about. In the early internet, there were just a few websites to keep track of. Now, like in crypto, there's DeFi, there's all of these different money protocols to keep track of. Zerion is almost like a Netscape navigator, I feel like, right? So you all you have to do is completely non-custodial, right? So all you have to do is bring your ETH address, whether that's on a hardware wallet or whatever wallet you have in MetaMask, whatever you have, and then you just plug it in, and then the world of DeFi kind of opens up to you. You get a bird's eye glance of all of the assets inside of your portfolio. You have the ability to interact with these various DeFi protocols and money Legos. What do you think of that analogy, right? So like Netscape really helped to mainstream the chaos and the navigation of the early internet, right? And so a user interface like Zerion is kind of helping to mainstream this internet of money that is DeFi.
I really like that analogy, but I would probably say that MetaMask is this Netscape browser as a better analogy at this moment. So for ourselves, of course, we're currently non-custodial, but for the new users, we think that at some point we'll roll out the support of the wallet itself, so people will be able to create a wallet on Zerion, and hence they can explore other interfaces outside of Zerion eventually. So I really hope that Zerion turns out to be Chrome browser rather than Netscape. But I think it's a great analogy. We've been thinking about that for a while. The DApp browser idea did not materialize, which is a bit sad, I would say, but kind of expected. And I think
what do you mean by the DApp browser? What was that?
So with the DApp browsers, you know how on mobile phones, all the wallets, they were trying to push this DApp browser thing inside their wallet, but the usage is really low, and it's much harder to kind of to trust the websites and everything. That's why actually with the Zerion app now, it acts like a DApp, like a native DApp, rather than a website inside of that browser, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. I don't know if people are familiar with the DApp browsers that you're talking about, but like I get the picture of I remember in 2017, like the state of the art was something like the Coinbase wallet on mobile. Yeah. And it was fashioned very much after like an app store type model, right? Very skeuomorphic to what came before, which was an app store. So it would have little tiles that you would, and it wasn't very crypto native. It wasn't very user friendly. You couldn't do a lot with it.
Right, exactly. And I think later on, Apple also went after these types of browsers. So they pretty much kicked everyone out if you were trying to replicate some sort of app store functionality within your app. So I think on iOS, it resulted in all of the wallets deleting their DApp browsers, which essentially means that your crypto is locked and you cannot do much with your crypto if you have a mobile wallet. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have this wallet connection to all the wallets natively on mobile, so you can actually start doing more things with your money, even if they're on your mobile phone.
So I want to get into some of these questions that we're getting in from the YouTube. And the first question I think is a good question to start with is we are curious as to how Zerion monetizes. How do you guys actually fund the business? Do you take transaction fees on actions executed by Zerion?
That's a good question. We get it quite a lot. So at the moment, Zerion does not earn pretty much anything. I would say that. So for full transparency, the only thing that we're currently making is the referral fees by 1 inch. So whenever we post a trade to 1 inch, they share some of the revenue that they generate from the transaction, and they share, I think, about 27% of the positive slippage that they take. So this is not something that we really wanted and envisioned as a long-term business model, but this is just something that happens, and we didn't make too much out of that. The largest, I mean, the only way we're funded is by the VC money at this point. So we took money from Placeholder as our lead investor about a year and a half ago. And yeah, we're still running off of that money.
What are the possible models for you into the future? Have you given any thought to that? And of course, the topic, if it hasn't been asked in YouTube, it's about to be asked about like the potential for a token as a consideration in that. What are the possible models? What have you guys batted around? Is the idea of some sort of a token appealing to you or not yet?
Yeah, so starting with the models that we'll start experimenting as soon as like Q1 of this year is actually taking the transaction fees, but we want to be we don't want to be rent seeking, as I said before, because it doesn't make sense. So users would just leave us if we're trying to be squeeze the fees into everything. So what we will be doing the fees only on the things where it makes sense when we're actually helping the user. So imagine you're trying to buy like a Y earn strategy that is like takes you like you would need otherwise to make about like 3 to 4 transactions in order to execute that. Or you would get a lower rate, or you'd need to manually go to some other aggregators to find the best rate first to exchange and then only to deposit into the strategy. So stuff like that, where we are simplifying the experience and making your life easier, then I think it's justifiable that we take the fee. So this is something that we have in mind for the short term. I think in the longer run, yeah, we can talk about the token. So we're definitely not anti-token. We like the ideas of tokens, and we think that pretty much any company in the crypto space is going to have a token at some point, or like die in a sense. Because like because this is just a new way of doing equity, I would say. And I think it's inevitable that this is just a better instrument to do equity, and it makes perfect sense for us. It's better to reward users using that, and it's much more flexible. And you can be, as crazy in terms of actual implementation and the model itself. We will never do the token just for the sake of the token. So this is like definitely not our plan. And the airdrop, like people are going crazy on Twitter asking about the airdrops. We are considering that. So I'll just say that. So keep using Zerion if you want to be part of an airdrop.
Wow.
But I'm not making any promises here.
Of course.
let's say that.
So Evgeny, a token can do almost anything, because that's the power of Ethereum and that's the power of tokens. Yet we've seen tokens be tools to achieve the decentralization of some aspects of a project, right? It's a way to turn governance over from a centralized team to the hand of the token holders, right? What things about the Zerion platform do you think you could hand over control to a set of token holders? Have you guys thought about this?
Yeah, so this is the biggest challenge, I would say. So we are not a typical DeFi protocol company. So if we're taking Co-Founde or like Maker, this is pretty much all of their business is on chain. So it's much easier to, just decentralize the governance over that stream of money and have it all worked out and controlled by the token. So with our case, most of the value is actually not on chain. So we only have pretty much a small portion at this point on chain, and most of the things are happening either on the front end or or the data that is streamed on the from the back end. So this is the biggest challenge that we see, and I think there are not many examples at this point when companies like ours were able to introduce a token that was representing the core portion of the business. And I think we're going to continue to work on that. So I think the easiest way for us is to decentralize governance over the DeFi SDK. So DeFi SDK is becoming a more and more important piece of the Zerion stack. So essentially, pretty much any balance that you see on the protocol is fetched through the DeFi SDK. So this is what we call read adapters. And yeah, just for the ones who don't know about the DeFi SDK, let me just take a step back here. So the DeFi SDK is the smart contract layer that we've built that allows you to first fetch all the balances across different DeFi protocols, as well as execute all multiple different actions across different protocols. And whatever is the only thing that is needed for the DeFi SDK to work with a new protocol is this adapter. And it can be built by either us, and we've built most of the adapters, I would say, by this point. But we're starting to get more and more protocols building the adapters themselves. And thank you guys for doing that, if anyone is listening from the protocol side. So this is really helping us, because we just, we look at the pull request and we click to push it, and now we have this new support for the new protocol that we haven't really even researched. So essentially, this allows us to mix and match all the different transactions through the same smart contract layer. And we are already routing the 1-inch trades through the DeFi SDK, and we'll add Uniswap trades and Sushi trades through that layer too. So that means that pretty much any transaction that is involving the trade on Zerion will go through this layer, and will be as cheap as going through the native smart contracts. So that is like the big benefit, and we'll continue to kind of unify the interaction layer through the DeFi SDK on Zerion, which will allow us to essentially see all the transactions that are generated by the Zerion UI, and hence understand how we can distribute the governance over the adapters within the DeFi SDK, and the fees that if we potentially take them on the DeFi SDK level. So that is like the simplest path to token that we see at the moment. But I think we're just lacking the tools at the moment in terms of the decentralizing control over GitHub, for instance. So that would be, of course, ideal, but it's not. We're definitely not there yet. So imagine having a token holder is controlling what kind of code is running on the backend, and this would be amazing. So if we can have like the team that is rewarded by the token holders in a sense, and like just shares the part of the profit goes to the team that maintains the backend system that allows you to find the best trade. So yeah, all of that is just a distant future that is a bit hard to envision right now, I think, but it's going to be there at some point.
So you were talking about the DeFi SDK, and this might be my naiveness about technical level details, but we have a question from the YouTube about whether or not Zerion uses the graph in the protocol. Does what you were talking about querying data using the DeFi SDK, again, this might be naive, but does that have to do with something similar to the graph? And do you guys use the graph in your backend?
That's a good question, first of all, and we currently do not use the graph, and we have built the system which is pretty much similar to what the graph has, but it's more tailored towards the DeFi use case. So the graph is kind of like the one backend trying to fit it all. So they allow you to essentially extract logs from different smart contracts, and you can build the backend based on the graph and query the data using the graph. But stuff like cross-associating between protocols and building your own things on top of the graph is becoming harder. So it's essentially a lot of customization needed in order to create an interface like Zerion. So we have, we actually started the Zerion backend infrastructure long before the graph was published or like public. So that means that we have built pretty much the same, or sometimes even more than the graph has, allowing us to do a lot of stuff that other interfaces cannot do.
This middleware piece is like absolutely necessary for the kind of stuff that you're doing. Are there other, so you've got the graph, you've got your DeFi SDKs. Are there other kind of middleware layers out there that are, I don't know if competing is the right word, but like, yeah, what's the middleware layer look like for somebody who's trying to build something on DeFi right now?
There are actually not many. So DeFi SDK is the smart contract solution to that, but DeFi SDK is not does not fully solve the problem, because it only allows you to fetch, let's say, balances on staked balances or deposits in multiple protocols. But there are a lot of things like asset prices or historical portfolio performance. So stuff like that, and matching that with pricing is more complicated. I think in a way, Dune Analytics is similar. So they allow you to query a bunch of data and like use SQL to extract whatever data you want, but it's definitely not real time, as you probably know. So I think at the moment there are not many alternatives to what we have as an API. Probably, I think the closest one Alchemy has some form of an API for like querying balances, but it's definitely not as DeFi focused as what we have.
I want some people who maybe are less technical, maybe zoned out a little bit when we were talking about APIs and SDKs and that sort of thing. I want you guys to realize how important what like SDKs and these APIs actually are, because this is the type of stuff that got built out during the last 2 years of the bull market that essentially needed to be built out, bear market, excuse me, that needed to be built out in order to enable something like Zerion today. And now it's built. And other apps can essentially use that same scaffolding. Like we have some of the highways in place that we didn't have back in 2017, 2018. So it's got to make building a lot faster this cycle. And I think well, I'd actually like your thoughts on that. So Andre from YFI recently put out a post saying like I forget what the title is, like building DeFi sucks, right? Part 2 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your experience building in DeFi? Does it suck?
I would say no. I think the biggest reason is that we don't have a token.
Yeah. Okay.
And he in his post, he is complaining quite a lot about the token, specifically of how token came into his life and pretty much made a big mess there. And this is like a one worry that we have about the token, of course, is that this does slow down the process. So when you're the sole decision maker in the whole thing, it's allowing you to move much faster. And that's why, like, you know, building does not suck because you're only making whatever you like in a sense. But over a long time, of course, it's better to have multiple people who are responsible for the decision and involved in decision making. So I think it's kind of natural that he's saying that. Yeah, our experience, I think, fundraising in my experience sucks, but everything about building is great.
Evgeny, I was curious how Zerion measures its growth and its success, right? So you might look at a DeFi protocol like Uniswap and measure it by trading volume, right? That's something Hayden Adams puts out quite frequently. You might look at something like Maker and Co-Founde and measure total locked value, assets under management, that sort of thing. For Zerion, is it number of users? Is it number of wallets, like a wallet being like almost like a DeFi bank account? Is it assets inside of the platform? How do you measure growth and success, and what has the trajectory been like?
Yeah, so we actually use multiple different metrics and KPIs that we find important. I think the one that is the easiest to track is the number of users. And that we measure by how many people connected their wallets. So we identify the user as someone who connected at least one wallet to the Zerion UI. And the trajectory of that metric is almost parabolic, I would say. Obviously, like over the summer, we had a bunch of new people coming into the DeFi with the yield farming craze, and they needed tools to watch their portfolios. Now it is another bull market, and it's more the crypto side, less of on the DeFi side. But at the same time, people are now discovering all these new different assets. So they are, you know, sharing Zerion links to different assets, just like they would use, you know, CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap. But this time they can start buying them right away from the same experience. So you see the price performance and you can buy it right away. So I think this is helping us quite a bit in terms of funneling the traffic into the product. Yeah, in December, we had over 53,000 people using us across 3 platforms. So we find that, and this is probably like a very underestimation in terms of the number, because a lot of people use ad blockers and stuff. So we don't know the actual number, and it's by looking at comparing the on-chain volume with actual analytics that we have, we see that the discrepancy is up to 50%. So it might be that, you know, it's the number is much bigger than that. But overall, yeah, we're pretty happy with this growth in terms of the users, and we're hopeful that in the next year it's going to, you know, continue to be the case. But other metrics that are more interesting in our view is the market share that we started to measure recently. And we do that by looking at the on-chain data. So so with each protocol, all the data is public, which is great. So you can start looking at how many users interacted with a particular protocol, and how many of these users were using Zerion in a given month. So say we identify users, and by users I mean wallets in this case. So wallets that interact, let's say, with 4 different protocols in a given month. And among these users, we have over 40%. So we call them, power DeFi users. And these are like among power DeFi users, about 40% use Zerion every month. So
Wow.
that is like one metric that we look at. We also look at, we call them active DeFi users who use at least 2 protocols. And among these, we have over 20 something, I don't remember the exact number, percent. So that is what we look at. And of course, the transaction volume is kind of like the recent thing we started looking at since the release of the full trading experience in the late September. But yeah, that's the 3 things that we're keeping our eyes on.
So, Evgeny, we have crypto banks like Coinbase, where like that's kind of where people get started when they are trying to like get into the world of crypto, and they want to keep that familiarity. It's like, oh yeah, I know how to operate Coinbase. It kind of works like my Wells Fargo. And I think that's using crypto in like the 2D sense, right? Like the relatively unimaginative sense. And I think like Zerion is like a new sort of like crypto bank account, crypto bank in the 3D sense, in the sense that like you actually have the ability to load up your bank account into like the Zerion portal, right? Into the Zerion interface. Yeah. But in that same model, like, crypto banks and actual, normal banks and also like legacy brokers, they have leverage when they have more people using their product, right? If they have more capital flowing through Wells Fargo, flowing through TradingView, flowing through like whatever, Charles Schwab, they have more leverage. They can get better like market prices. What does that model exist as well with Zerion? When more people use Zerion, are you guys able to like advocate for your users for better rates, or like what are you able to do in a more advantageous fashion when more people use Zerion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this model is pretty much the same. So I'm hopeful that in DeFi, we're going to have something more smart in terms of the business models. But I think the exact concept applies. So looking at OneInch, for instance, they are already doing that. So whenever you get a quote, you sometimes get a quote from private market maker, as they call it. So essentially, that is something that only they were able to get for their users, because these private market makers are providing these quotes only for OneInch users, and especially for like bigger chunks and bigger trades. And the similar thing happens with Zerion. So as we get more and more trading volume, we would be able to secure the deals with market makers in the space and provide better quotes. And I think this is like the most straightforward path to getting like more value out of more usage. But at the same time, I think as we enter the era of L2s, we're going to have even more trading volume, and L2s are in a sense more separated than the shared liquidity in the L2 of Ethereum. So then I think that will be even more of a thing. So being able to actually having all these users on your platform and trading will have a direct impact on what kind of quotes and trades they're getting on the specific layer 2 solutions. So that is a bit unfortunate that we cannot really share all the liquidity, but I think overall we'll figure something out, and something probably more interesting than just commissions and fees will arise as the business model.
Okay, we are going to be back for this Bankless Community AMA in just a minute. But first, we want to tell you about our fantastic sponsors who made this possible.
Synthetix is Ethereum's decentralized derivatives liquidity protocol. What does that mean? Synthetix is a platform for creating and trading synthetic assets, which are assets that are priced via an oracle rather than bids or asks. Traders can use the KWENTA exchange, which hosts and trades all of the synthetic assets created by Synthetix. Traders on KWENTA can trade synthetic tokens like SBTC, SOIL, or SDeFi. Because KWENTA is powered by Synthetix, traders experience zero slippage on their trades. No, I didn't mean low slippage. I meant no slippage, because that is the power of the Synthetix platform. No slippage on your trades. You can also easily short assets with iSynths, which are synthetic assets that move inversely to their target asset. Synthetics isn't just for traders. Developers can build on synthetics to access the infinite liquidity offered by synthetic assets, or investors can stake collateral to the protocol and earn fees that the protocol collects. If you're a trader and you're looking for a trading platform not found in the legacy world, check out KWENTA.io. If you're a developer or you just want to earn yield on your collateral, go to www.synthetics.io, where you can stake your SNX or ETH and earn fees from synthetics. If you want to live a bankless life, you need to get a Monolith DeFi Visa card. Monolith is a 1-2 punch of both an Ethereum smart contract wallet and an accompanying Visa card that lets you spend the money that you have in your Ethereum wallet everywhere where Visa is accepted. When you swipe your Monolith Visa card at the grocery store or at a restaurant, it actually makes a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain that spends some of the money you hold in your Monolith wallet. It's insanely cool, and it's one of the best tools out there for living a bankless but still normal life. Monolith also offers on-ramp services for getting your fiat money into the world of DeFi. So it's trivial to top up your Monolith card if you ever need to, and your deposited money goes straight into your non-custodial wallet. So your money is never held by a centralized intermediary. Because Monolith is native Ethereum infrastructure, the money you hold in your Monolith wallet still has the power of DeFi behind it. Swapping assets on Uniswap or earning yield in DeFi is at your fingertips. Go to monolith.xyz and sign up to get your Monolith Visa card today.
Guys, we are back with this community AMA. We have Evgeny from Zerion, and we are talking all about the Zerion platform and what it can do. So just before our sponsor break, you were talking a little bit about layer 2. And I think that's top of mind for bankless users right now and DeFi users in general, because gas fees are too damn high right now. It's very hard to get our transactions out. And it's expensive to do so. But Ethereum is developing this whole layer 2 world that you alluded to. Can you paint a picture of what that world might look like and how Zerion might be involved as sort of an aggregator across these layer 2 chains?
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the gas prices, by the way, I think that that really helps the Ethereum price go up, because whenever people are trying to sell, it's too much gas you need to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Not selling.
Exactly.
So we got to keep that for a while. So with L2s, yeah. Being serious here. So with L2s, I think this is first I want to describe the experience and how that might. I think the good analogy is iMessage. I don't know if you've tried that, but essentially, whenever you send an SMS, you get this green bubble, and it takes a pretty long time to deliver. While with iMessage, you instantly click, and it sends right away. So I think that is going to be that's how it's going to feel with L2 and all the transactions, because all of the people in the crypto space, they kind of got used to the fact that your transaction is taking 15 seconds or so to mine, sometimes a bit more, yeah, this is fine, but sometimes gets frustrated when you're trying to actually execute on a really important trade. So over a long time, I think most of the trading volume, pretty much all of it, will be concentrated on the L2 solutions, and at the moment there are probably over 6 different L2 different approaches that exist in the Ethereum space, and
yeah, and so
different...
that's the part we're worried about, right? So I think we see the promised land of an L2 where transactions are fast and cheap, but we're worried about it breaking composability, breaking all the money Legos that we developed on the main chain.
Yeah, so as I was saying, so essentially we've been just speaking with quite a few teams, and I think the general consensus among them that over a long time, it's going to be possible that all these L2 solutions will be interoperable, or at least some of the most important ones will be interoperable, and will have the same bright future for the DeFi space. So you don't have to, and in a way, they're all going to be interoperable by the fact that you can withdraw from the layer 2 and deposit into some other layer 2. So this is like one step, but it will probably be slow and not so efficient. And I think over time, with potentially the help of aggregators like Zerion, you'll be able to instantly move from one layer 2 to the other without actually the need to move back to the layer 1. So I think this is the place where aggregators will play a good, like a big role. And same goes to existing trading experience on layer one. Just like 1inch is better than just going on a single DEX.
So you imagine a world where just as Zerion has aggregated all of these different DeFi protocols on Ethereum, you're also aggregating all of these layer twos.
Yeah, so we're only starting on this journey. So you probably have heard that layer two are only spinning up, and like there are a few announcements planned for this year, and we're gonna see. I think that this year is going to be the year of L2s, and we're the first thing that we're gonna start with is just supporting the balances across these different layer two solutions, and among the most popular ones. And then as this ecosystem develops, we'll start adding actual trading functionality to to allow Zerion users to exploit, like you take advantage of the lower fees on the L2 solutions.
Well, I was told that this is going to be the year of lightning, so that's going to be an interesting take to see what happens. All right, so Evgeny, we have a number of quick questions I want to burn through out of the YouTube channel. First is I would like to ask about the graphing system that you have on the site. Are there plans to integrate charting tools like TradingView?
Oh, we actually, I don't think we have considered that really. We did think about it for a bit, but we really didn't take it this serious. I think the best way to proceed with that is to publish that on roadmap.zero.io and try to get the supporters to upvote that. So if you do, we're happy to integrate that as well. So we just so far haven't seen too much of a demand for this, but I don't think it is something unfeasible.
Okay, and then we have two questions about integrations. When will Pool Together be integrated into the Zerion UI? And then also somebody's asking about Celsius Network staked assets also viewable through the Zerion dashboard.
So on the Pool Together, we do track balances as far as I understand. We don't support the actual like the lottery functionality, but honestly, like I think the answer is the same. So if you want to get something integrated, it's either if you are a Solidity developer yourself, you can build an adapter for that, and that is the easiest path for us to integrate. Otherwise, we just didn't see too much of a demand, and Pull Together UI is great for their use case, and it's less of a financial one, I would say.
Okay, so that kind of leads into this question. How do you guys decide which protocols to integrate, and with so many new ones being built?
Yeah, so we are looking at quite a lot on the, as I said, the roadmap that Zerion. People are super helpful. The Zerion community is very active, and our users are constantly just telling us what protocols we should be focusing and paying attention to. So this is, I think, the most straightforward way we do that. Otherwise, we of course do our own research. So whenever we see something cool happening, and whenever we feel like this is something we should worth supporting within the UI as fast as possible, we try to get it done quickly. Yeah, and so far there's no. I think we're trying to get as many things as possible. So it's not that we're being discriminative in any form. It's yeah, but at some point I hope that most of the things will go through the DeFi SDK route, so people and protocols they will integrate things themselves, and we wouldn't even need to worry about that. Yeah.
So one question I have that, and this seems to be a pretty big problem in the space as a whole, is because there seems to be a difficulty finding a single source of truth, especially with regards to crypto prices, right? So if I load up my wallet into Zerion, and then if I load up my wallet into Zapper, and then if I also look at my wallet on Etherscan or any other like platform, it'll give me some sort of like 1 to 2% discrepancy on the price of these things. And so I would imagine that like accounting and getting prices accurate is a really difficult task. Can you talk about like the difficulty behind that achieving that goal and what you guys are working on to refine that?
Yeah, for sure. And this is actually the biggest problem that we're trying to solve. So and presenting the accurate portfolio it seems like an easy task because all the data is on the blockchain, right? But in fact, it's not. I think the biggest challenge is the pricing, as you said. So you can fetch pricing from multiple sources. There is, I think, one reliable source that we think is great is CoinGecko, We use it for many different assets, but even CoinGecko sometimes does not track the prices of weird things that live on the blockchain. So for that, you have to use Uniswap sometimes, or sometimes these assets are not on Uniswap, so you have to use some other source. So essentially, this is the biggest issue, and building something that would be able to keep track of all different price sources and aggregate across them, and probably take volume into account. So that is a challenge, and there's not many companies are have successfully built something in this area. And second is just understanding what kind of assets the wallet has. So because of the nature of blockchain, you cannot tell that a specific token belongs to a certain address. You need to first find this asset on the blockchain somewhere. And on the blockchain, there are so many different assets, and they appear every day. We, as an infrastructure, we use Uniswap as our source of finding new different tokens. So as soon as someone puts a Uniswap pool, we decide that this asset is like a particular token that is worth tracking. So that's how we solve this issue. And I think this is the biggest issue, the biggest discrepancy, where the biggest discrepancy comes from between us and Zapper, because Zapper manually whitelists all the different tokens. And we try to find them automatically on the blockchain as soon as they appear on Uniswap. But this system is, of course, not complete, and we will need to track more sources and more contracts. And ideally, we need to look into every smart contract that is deployed, understand that this is a token, and then start fetching the price. So that is like the two biggest issues, I think, in finding the balance.
I will tell you, you guys have done a very good job. A hidden use case I discovered for Zerion this year was figuring out what I actually did in my DeFi transactions, right? In order to like calculate taxes, right? Like try to figure that out on Etherscan. Very difficult to understand what you actually did in a year if you're an active DeFi user. But Zerion has this great sort of history where it kind of categorizes all of your transactions. You can look through and actually figure out what you did, and even like click a button and export that to your tax software. So it's stuff like that that just makes using DeFi much more user friendly. It's like indispensable. I don't know if you envisioned that as a use case, but it's something that I kind of just discovered this year through using Zerion.
We actually, when we were designing the history page, we didn't think that it's going to have this much success as it has now. This is like, I think, the feature that most of the people mention when talking. Speaking of the history page, calculating taxes was one thing that, you know, the token tax suggested we do, and we did it in a very, you know, but it turned out to be a big and useful feature. Can you hear me, by the way? I think my connection is unstable.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's not perfect. Your video's paused, but so far the audio is good enough. Mm-hmm. So I'll have a follow-up question to that, Zerion. Or excuse me, Evgeny. Are we still stumbling? Oh, I think we're coming back slowly but surely. I'm gonna take a pause here.
I can hear you.
There we go. Okay, cool. So what other than getting accurate pricing data, what are the other hard problems that you guys are trying to solve? Like, what else is like the big obstacle that you guys are trying to overcome?
There are some, I would say, like challenges that are similar to the early internet, that are only starting to kind of present themselves at the moment. And this is like, we only had, let's say, 300 wallets and addresses using DeFi stuff by this moment, probably a bit more, maybe like 500,000. But this is a very small number. And the number of assets that we currently have, it's still kind of small. So it's like probably in tens of thousands of assets. But as we grow, we have this problem of, you know, in DeFi, there are going to be way more assets than in the traditional finance. So on whatever you can find on NASDAQ is very limited. It's like maybe in thousands of different real stocks that you find and trade on NASDAQ. But with DeFi, you're going to have, you know, millions and millions of them, and you'll have, you know, millions and millions of users, obviously, and probably billions at some point. So just being able to match and like map these things together and finding, as I said before, finding these new assets, understanding what their prices are. So this is a big hard challenge, pretty algorithmical, I would say, and yeah, would probably need a lot of servers to do that.
And have you even scratched the surface on the NFT assets, or is this all even just tokens you're talking about?
I'm only talking about ERC20s,
Wow.
and this is like one of the standards, right? We're going to see more of different types of tokens, and NFT is another one, another big class that we haven't touched on yet. Within the Zerion experience, but this is something that we'll get to it, because this is part of your portfolio, and many things are worth quite a lot of money, as we've seen recently. So
well,
speaking of art is great.
Speaking of being worth a lot of money, this is a question that's been asked on YouTube a couple times now, so we got to get to it before the end. I love Zerion. Can Zerion add Bitcoin values? Are you going to have this asset that is going up, Bitcoin on Zerion soon?
Do you mean like tracking Bitcoin wallets?
Yeah, I think native Bitcoin wallets. Yeah,
I think native Bitcoin wallets rather than WBTC or an ERC20 version of Bitcoin. That's the question.
Yeah, this is something that Zapper did not so long ago. So we don't have plans yet. At this moment, we don't have clear path to implementing Bitcoin right away. But I think that is going to be the part of the Zerion experience once we have the wallet integrated into the Zerion wallet integrated in our apps. So as soon as you create a wallet on Zerion, this is something that we're working on, you'll be able to create a Bitcoin wallet as well and track the balance of it in the same UI. So that is something that we have in mind.
So Evgeny, when you're not focused on Zerion and you're tinkering around in DeFi, what are some of your favorite things to do? Like, what other projects are you interested in, and what other things do you pay attention to?
That's a good one. I thought you were gonna ask me about my hobbies outside of DeFi.
No, we don't. You have hobbies outside of crypto?
Yeah, we just didn't want to make that assumption.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about DeFi. Keep it simple. So with DeFi, I think the stuff I like, I think lately is the rebasing tokens. I think this is amazing. It's like this is one of the concepts that was not possible with legacy finance. Just like flash loans was like the first one. So now I kind of excited about the rebasing ones, and especially the ones that are not just amplifiers, like the ones that track a particular price, like $1, and have fixed target price, but the ones like what is the base protocol, I think it's called, where it tracks the cryptocurrency market capitalization over time using rebasing mechanisms. I think this is something, there's something about it and something cool about it, and probably we're only very early in this process, but we'll probably see some more cool applications of that in the future.
So I would imagine that would be an extremely difficult thing to get tracked inside of Zerion. Was that a challenge to get that done?
Oh yeah, we actually had quite a few bugs related to that, because these rebalancing tokens, they are not like this. They're not tracked in the same way. So we were giving users crazy gazillion dollar values at some point, and all the Twitter went crazy about it. But yeah, it's only been there for an hour. Sorry guys, we made you feel super rich for only an hour.
Evgeny, it's been fantastic having you on the Bankless AMA. For all the listeners out there, I want to remind you to like and subscribe if you like this video. Evgeny's face will get posted all over YouTube more, so do that, and also subscribe to the channel for future AMAs. Ryan, do you have any last questions for Evgeny here?
No, I think we're all set. Evgeny, thank you for building Zerion. It's an app that I use on the daily, and you've made the lives of many Bankless listeners easier because we have that tool. So thank you. Appreciate your work.
Thank you guys, and thanks for building this amazing community. I think that cannot go, we cannot build anything without the people who are using it.
Absolutely. And if you guys have not yet tried out Zerion, you can go to zerion.io and plug in your wallet. It also has a mobile app as well, which is really useful. Not going to show it, but it's on my phone. And it's also got a nice little widget, so you can put the widget into your home base. So you don't have to actually open up the app. It's just right there in front of you, and you can it'll tell you how much money you made or lost in the last day. It's a really addictive thing to look at your phone for.
Absolutely.
All right,
Maybe
guys.
this is the only thing how I use Zerion now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more fun to look at this during a bull market. So download Zerion during the bull market.
Yeah, delete it in the bear market.
Don't delete it.
Don't delete it.
All right, guys.
Yeah, don't do it.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.